I'm Nish. I'm a rising junior in North Carolina, and I'm making this short documentary about drug addiction, mostly focus on youth, but I guess for everyone, it's good to raise awareness about it. And I think I want to focus more on the early signs of addiction and how to prevent it before it becomes a big problem in someone's life. And if it does become a big problem, how to get help eventually.
Do you know,
Summary.
does where you live in North Carolina, does it have
Mhm.
a big problem in that community in particular?
Yeah, in schools, there's lots of drug networks going around. It's much more than I expected. But
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, and
let me ask too. It's in the so you know about it in the school. I guess they put.
mhm.
I know sometimes the schools will put press releases out if something happens. Is that what you see, or do you see it among your friends?
No, because I see it. I don't think our school has as much of a problem as other schools in the area, but I still see it in like the bathrooms. People will be feeding like smoking or drinking or even like trading weed or like yeah, it's crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I do see it uh more in other schools. So
Okay.
thankfully it's not as bad in our school. Yeah.
Right.
hmm
And
So
you're going into your junior year.
mhm. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
the next 2 years will go by very quickly,
Yeah.
but so enjoy every day. Yeah, I guess, let me first by kind of introducing myself and
Mm.
my medical practice.
Yeah.
Um, so my specialty is what's called hospice palliative medicine, which is the medicine of end of life care, we call it. So
Mm.
these are people that are have medical conditions that maybe have weeks or months or maybe a year or two to live,
Mm.
but they have a medical condition that's going to unfortunately end their life at some point. And so my role
Uh,
is to make sure that the medical condition, um, if they have symptoms like pain or shortness of breath, things like that, making sure that they're comfortable in their
mm.
whatever time they have left. And so that's my job, and I do that within the hospital,
Mhm.
as you're saying. And so, um, because of my field, I prescribe opioids, many times each day. So I am a
Oh, really?
high prescriber of opioids,
Oh.
but it's only to those people that are at the, end of their life.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay. And so, uh, I don't know if I'm part of the problem. I'm an opioid prescriber, right? And I'm not because it's only a
Mm.
select group of people I
Yeah.
prescribe
Yeah.
to. Having said that, too, I do see, unfortunately, the end result of people that have had opioid addiction, and it's caused problems, and that one story I'll just share is that
Mm.
even just recently, last week, we had a 30-something year old person who had
Mhm.
been addicted to drugs, and had a history of post traumatic stress from being a
Mm.
soldier in the war. Um, and the medications, the drugs that not the medications, the drugs he was on ultimately led to multi-system organ failure. Many of his organs are
Oh.
failing.
Oh,
And
it's
so there was no medicine that we could do to save his life.
mm.
And so instead, he came on what's called hospice care with me. And in his final, weeks, we made him comfortable.
Oh.
So I do see the results of this
Mm.
uh, often.
Okay. That's
And
good.
so I was thinking of some of your questions, like, what causes addiction? I was thinking of, well, what's the definition of addiction? And it's something, I'm thinking we're addicted to something if we have a psychological and a physiological need to continue to do this thing, even if we know it causes us harm,
No, yeah.
right?
So, yeah, yeah. With that definition, I guess. So, is it more of a mind thing than a biological thing, you would say?
Right. I think it's a combination, and I don't know the exact, how split, but I would say that I think in the medical world they're saying that maybe 50% of it relates to genetics.
Mm,
And I know that NIH just published a study last year, um, suggesting maybe what are some of the genetic markers for substance abuse, so people can start researching that more.
mm,
There's no genetic test we can do, right? So I think the doctors, we more focus on medical history. So if I'm going to
mm,
prescribe you opioids, for example, I'm going to ask, do you have a history of schizophrenia, for example?
mm,
Because we know people with schizophrenia, 50% of those people will have substance abuse disorder. So,
mm.
you have a history of depression. Do you have a history of, some of these mental health issues? Um, do you have other medical history? These might predispose you to becoming having substance abuse. But then we know the other half of it is kind of environmental. Like I said,
Mm.
do you have a history of trauma, whether that's war or um, abuse or post-traumatic stress? Those are also
Mm.
things that contribute. So I think there's a 50-50 mix. Yeah, environmental
Yeah.
versus genetic or medical history.
So it's all like indirectly like mixed together to make you more vulnerable to these drugs. I guess.
Right. Right,
Okay.
right. Makes you
Yeah.
more predisposed to um, liking the effects or needing the effects of the drugs, right?
Mm,
That are you trying to escape something? Are you, um, the feeling of it, whatever it
mm,
is. When we talk about, again, as someone who treats pain for a living,
hmm
we talk about a concept called total pain. We know that if you have a pain in your, well, if you have a pain in your toe or whatever, right? If it's chronic, it's not just the pain in the toe. It's also could be psychological pain, it could be
mm,
spiritual pain, it could be, all these different aspects of your life that contribute to pain. And so
mm.
when you have a drug addiction, you may be treating a pain, right? A physical
Yeah.
pain, like a nerve pain, but you're also treating your emotional pain, spiritual pain,
Mm,
all those different
yeah.
aspects of pain. Yeah.
Like, what are the early signs in general? Like, yeah.
Right. So yeah, the kind of the early signs of addiction.
Mm,
So I come at it from a little different perspective. I think certainly someone might describe, is there irritability? Is there attention span? The
yeah.
subtle sign. But I think of it more broadly. I'll say, first of all, is someone using? You have to know, are they using or not?
Mm,
And they may not admit it. But if you know that yeah, I smoke occasionally, right? I
mm,
do marijuana
yeah.
occasionally. The key is it to the level of addiction? I ask, are you in trouble at work? Are you in trouble with your
Mm,
family? Are you in trouble with your spouse, your friends, right? If it's causing problem in multiple areas of your life, then we know it's an
yeah.
addiction,
Yeah.
right? Are you showing up to work late? Are you, or showing up to school? Are you not,
Yeah.
you're going to college. Are you able to get to class on time? Are you completing your studies? Things like that.
Yeah.
Um, when we think about, in particular, marijuana use, because I think there's that's becoming more mainstream. And I think, I don't know what the legislation will be over the next few years, but when we think about marijuana, tobacco,
Mm,
really, if you are using any of those substances routinely, then
mm.
I would say you have an addiction
It did.
that we know that those substances do cause harm. Now, I'm not going to get
Mm,
into a debate of cigarettes versus marijuana. One is
yeah.
less, but they do cause harm. They cause,
Yeah.
lung damage and things like that. And
Mm,
so any use that's routine, I would say that's a level of addiction. When it comes to alcohol, it's a little more insidious because, right, alcohol is more acceptable
mm,
in our society, whether we're talking in the U.S. or internationally. And there are studies that say, oh, glass of wine occasionally may have good health benefits. So
mm.
the literature out there gets confusing to people. Um, so again, the early signs of addiction would be, is that substance affecting, your
Right.
your
You're
your
like,
environment?
yeah. So are these signs different for like young adults than like grown-ups, adults?